Because I think the weapons in the O-line are pretty good now. How long will you give Caleb before you say, warning, I'm not, it can't just be wins, because you can win games in this league and not play well. What will you look for with Caleb based on what you've seen, and how long will you give him to become a hit?
I would have patience with him. I think he's got enough talent and enough upside to have patience with him. I don't think it's I don't think right away. I mean, Troy Aikman started out really poorly his rookie year. Like they didn't do well. Peyton Manning, I think he might have led the league in interceptions. Eli Manning got benched for Kurt Warner. There's all these stories of young quarterbacks. It doesn't start out well. Quarterback is such a team game. You need the people around you to play well. When you go to the team that has the first pick in the draft, they're usually not a great team. Now, in Caleb's situation, I believe they've built it really well around him, especially this year. And they blamed everybody else in the building besides him. And so now I just think the spotlight's going to be on him. I would have patience, but at the same time, I don't know if Chicago will. I think they open up against Brian Flores' defense. That's a beast of a defense with all their all-out pressure, their simulated pressure. I wouldn't wish that for any young quarterback, but at the end of the year, I think a decision will be made on him one way or the other. And it's just fair to say, if you watch the film, he's off to a very, very slow start.
Do I feel validated? Because this is literally what I've been talking about how, you have to have patience. And that it's not fair just to be like, well, because Colin's like, by week 4, we're going to know the answer. And it's like, what are we talking about here? That's absurd. And then people jump in and say, oh, well, you're just making excuses for Caleb. You're making excuses for Caleb. And it's like, no, this stuff takes time. And the talent is clearly there. And listen, I don't really care about the statistics for Caleb, because a lot of people, I think some of those statistics are a little bit misleading, so to speak, and they don't really tell the full story. But I do think on the surface level, though, you can admit that considering that team was a pretty big mess, that he had a 62.5 completion percentage, 20 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, like he still took care of things, relatively speaking, and to the best of his abilities in year 1, fired coaches, new coordinators, bad O-line, etc., etc. That is pretty impressive. Now, he's definitely had plenty of moments, and this is why, what Hasselbeck said, if you actually watch the film, it's fair to say that he got off to a slow start, and I think that is true and fair, but I just really want to be able to see this year as a whole and not automatically jump to conclusions based on the fact of like, well, he's playing the Minnesota Vikings week 1. And it's like, yeah, Brian Flores, awesome defense. Like, that's all anyone praised last year was Brian Flores and his defense, and people were predicting that he was going to get a head coaching job. In fact, people were talking about him going to the Chicago Bears. And so, of course he's going to be in a position to be able to make Caleb look uncomfortable. And so if Caleb does indeed look uncomfortable, it's like, that's par for the course. And if Caleb overcomes it, well, then that should be huge praise for him. And I had already talked about that it's a tough situation, mainly because if J.J. McCarthy is the starting quarterback, and if J.J. McCarthy looks more settled, then people are just going to run with that, to the end of time. And then you have the Detroit Lions, and then I think it's, the Dallas Cowboys, and then Dallas Cowboys, and then Raiders or something, I think. That's right. I've looked at their schedule too much then. But, yeah. So it's just not the easiest situation, quite frankly. I'm really looking at Caleb Williams this season, game to game to game. I want to see him against great defenses and great defensive coordinators who typically own young quarterbacks. That's how it works in the NFL. I want to see what he looks like. If he fails, I want to see how badly does he fail. Does he have moments that I'm impressed by that? Does he just look lost from start to finish? Does he overcome it? Etc., etc. That's what I'm looking for. How does he look against a bad offense? How does he look like against an average offense? I'm very high on the Bears and what they'll be able to accomplish with Caleb, the offseason moves they've made with Ben Johnson and all that. I don't feel the need to kind of plant this flag and say Caleb Williams better prove to be this generational top 5 talent by week 6. Otherwise, what's going on? I do think it's fair to look at his season as a whole, start to finish, but make no mistake about it. It's not necessarily about the team success, and it's not really necessarily about what the stats show. It's just really not. Like, this is really going to be like, I'm just going to watch each game individually. I'm going to carry a little bit what I learned from week 1 into week 2 and week 2 into week 3. But I really am going to just kind of hit the reset button and just be like, what do I see today? And then when it's all said and done, look at it cumulatively. Look at it and see, did we see development? Did we see growth? Did we see regression? You know, was it kind of up and down, but still on its way up? I mean, we know this stuff isn't just linear. And maybe it's a lot smoother. Maybe him and Ben Johnson are really able to hit the ground running. And then, you know, pretty much all these offseason takes just end up being like, well, didn't matter, right? Because it's the thing, I don't have a strong prediction of how successful he will be against the Minnesota Vikings and Brian Flores defense. I think a lot of that will depend on how comfortable is JJ McCarthy. Is JJ McCarthy turning the ball over? Are they getting extra possessions? Are they going 3 and out? You know, like, I don't know. Do the Detroit Lions take a big step back? You know, like, there's still so many other question marks that it's not fair to try to figure out the criteria and the way you're going to reach conclusions on the Chicago Bears and specifically Caleb Williams right now based off of not knowing any of this other information. Doesn't make sense. I mean, it just really doesn't. It's like trying to create a formula, like a mathematical formula, without having all the numbers to work with. It's like, well, then you can't do it. You can't do it then. You need information. You need something. You need to have some sort of foundation. And you know, the truth is that foundational information is going to be what does the competition look like that Caleb and the Chicago Bears team are facing. I'm just not going to be like, well, he better be able to beat the Ravens by now. It's a second year. If he was really as good as Lamar and Josh Allen, well, then he would be beating them now. It's like, okay, whatever. You know, I'm looking for comfortability. I'm looking for growth. I'm looking for sustainability and consistency. That's ultimately what I'm looking for. I look for that in any quarterback, in any type of player, quite frankly. I don't really think that that's necessarily special or unique. But I think what Hasselbeck said as well, and it is right, and this is what I was talking about, that the media and the Chicago as a whole are going to be like, let's go, let's go, let's go. But, you know, sometimes you got to really cut that down the middle. Like they say, you know, if you're listening to the fans in the stands, then one day you'll join them. And it is true. There's some truth to that. Sometimes you do listen to the fans and you listen to the media, and you know sometimes they get to the answer faster than the people inside the building. That definitely happens plenty of times, and you kind of want to feel a healthy pressure from the fans to make moves when you don't feel that pressure. That's how you end up being the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Carolina Panthers, just doing nothing for a long, 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 long time. And when you feel the pressure from the fans, like the Philadelphia Eagles, you're constantly forced to make moves. You're constantly forced to make changes. And because of that, you win. And so I do think it's kind of a balance here. But, you know, Caleb Williams has become a very divisive figure in the NFL. And so people want to make such strong, bold claims. And that always makes things a little bit messier. And nobody ever wants to give patience to a player like that with Caleb Williams. So I'm excited to see how it unfolds from like even just like a narrative and media perspective, as well as just like what are we actually watching when we see him play. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears? What do you think the fair expectations are for him, and how quickly does he need to start having success? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.